Hey everybody, it's Nate Eaton here in our studio, and we have some Daybell news. Been a while, kind of been a little quiet, but the motions are now starting to get filed ahead of Chad Daybell's trial, which will begin in April in Ada County. And if you remember back to Lori Vallow's trial, before it actually happened, her attorneys filed a bunch of motions. About motions to strike the death penalty, motions about the jury, motions about evidence. We're going to see that all in the coming months leading up to Chad's trial because it's kind of the standard operating procedures, I guess, and you have to be sure that everything is filed to reduce the risk of appeal, or to not reduce the risk of appeal, but I guess so that these issues, when it goes to appeal, they can look back and say, was this taken care of? Was that taken care of? Things like that. So Chad Daybell's attorney filed a bunch of three motions on Thursday, and dealing with the motion to strike the death penalty. And he's basically saying that Chad Daybell, as the co-conspirator in this case, was not as culpable as Lori Vallow Daybell, his wife. He says the state during Lori's trial consistently argued that Miss Vallow was the most culpable party to the alleged conspiracy that led to the deaths of J.J. Tylee and Tammy Daybell. Miss Vallow set the conspiracy in motion. She manipulated both Alex Cox and Chad Daybell, and she remained in charge of the plan throughout. Lori, quote, manipulated Chad through emotional and sexual control, and Chad was not going to act without Lori saying so. So what John Pryor has done, Chad's attorney, has gone through the transcripts from Lori's trial, and he's pulling parts out of the transcript and saying this is why Lori is more culpable. Lori did not face the death penalty. Because she didn't face the death penalty, Chad shouldn't face the death penalty because she was far more culpable than him. I'm sorry, I'm just shooting this on my phone to get the video out as quickly as possible. So he goes on. It's an 11-page. One of the filings on the culpability is an 11-page filing, and he goes on to say that even when two co-defendants are equally culpable, it's unconstitutional and unacceptable to subject one of them to the most extreme punishment available, death, while the other did not face that possibility. Now, if you remember, Lori Vallow did face the death penalty up until a few weeks before her trial. She did not waive her right to a speedy trial. So the judge, that trial had to happen. She was not waiving her right. Well, then the extra evidence came out, the additional evidence came out, that the defense argued they didn't have enough time to go through it all. The mitigation expert, the one whose job is to work with Lori and research her background and basically argue about why she should not get the death penalty. She said that she would not have enough time to get that mitigation stuff put together. So because of that, the judge said, well, unless Lori waives her trial, we'll have to take the death penalty off the table because we don't have enough time to go through all of this. And that's what happened. Chad, on the other hand, has waived his right to a speedy trial, and his attorney has had since May of 2021, when Chad was indicted, to get this thing ready. So by the time it goes to trial, it will have been almost 3 years since the indictment. But still, John Pryor's arguing that Lori Vallow was far more culpable than Chad Daybell was in all of this. He goes through and he lists several reasons: that she manipulated Alex and Chad, she was the common thread, she led to the alleged conspiracy throughout the whole thing. He goes on to list all of these things about why Judge Boyce needs to take the death penalty off the table. And we have the argument, the motion that we've posted at eastidahonews.com. You can go read it if you want. And he goes through and cites, previous cases and how Lori groomed Alex and groomed Chad, and any death sentence imposed upon Chad would violate the fundamental constitutional principles requiring equal justice under the law, John Pryor writes, and would be unconstitutionally disproportionate, excessive, fundamentally unfair, and arbitrary and capricious. Mr. Daybell respectfully requests that this court strike the state's notice of intent to seek the death penalty pursuant to the 6th, 8th, and 14th Amendments to the U.S. Constitution. And that is the argument. Now, what will happen is on the 29th of November, I apologize that this is shaky. Next time I'll use a tripod. The 29th of November, Pryor will make this argument. He will go into the court. He will argue why he doesn't believe Chad should get the death penalty. And we'll see what happens. There's also another issue that will be discussed. Cameras in the courtroom. If you remember, Judge Boyce banned cameras about a year ago, well, September of 2022, ahead of Lori Vallow's trial and Chad's. Chad Daybell's attorney asked that cameras be in the courtroom. Well, at the time, the cases were joined. Judge Boyce said, if the cases become severed and Chad has a separate trial, I will revisit this issue. So he is going to revisit the issue on the 29th of this month, November. And Pryor will argue for cameras. I can tell you that East Idaho News and some other local Idaho media have hired an attorney, and we will be in the courtroom to also argue on behalf of cameras. And whether Judge Boyce changes his mind or not, we remains to be seen. But you know, it's an issue I said before. We believe that you should be able to see it all, and that, you know, that cameras should be in there, and we'd love it if cameras were in every court hearing. So that will be another issue that will be discussed at that November 29th hearing. It's possible that the prosecution could also file some motions in the coming days that will be heard that day too. The prosecutors will respond to this death penalty motion to strike with their own argument, their own rebuttal, I guess you could say. And they obviously want to keep the death penalty on the table. Now, going forward, Judge Boyce has said he's going to set monthly hearing dates where, like with Lori, it was, I think, the first Thursday of every month at the same time, they had a status conference where they'd all meet, they'd see if they're all on the same page, so we knew when it was going to happen, if there was anything new that came up. Judge Boyce has said he will do the same thing with Chad's case. Should this go all the way to trial, which at this point it looks like it is, I mean, there could be a last-minute plea agreement or Chad could change his plea. This trial will, John Pryor says, be at least 8 weeks. It's a death penalty trial, so jury selection will take longer because there's a whole death penalty line of questioning, and then we'll have the whole death penalty sentencing phase, or sentencing portion of the trial, meaning there'll be the normal trial. If Chad is found guilty, there will then be the penalty phase of the trial where Chad's attorney will argue that he shouldn't get death. The prosecution will argue that he should. They will each be able to present witnesses during that time. And then the jury will come back and say, okay, he's going to get the death penalty. If he does not get death, he will get life in prison. There's no other option if he's found guilty and if this remains the way it is. So we'll know if a guilty verdict comes down, we'll know within a week or so, or 2 weeks, if he's getting death or not, what his sentence is. Unlike Lori, because death penalty was off the table, she was found guilty in May and then was not sentenced until end of July. So that's kind of the background. Anyway, there are some, the filings will, like I said, we'll link to. You can go read them if you're interested in it for yourself. We'll be in that courtroom that day on the 29th of November. We have requested, we've submitted a request to video it, to have a camera in there and to live stream it. We'll see what the judge says. He has not responded to that request yet. And so you can watch it if you want. Wherever you're watching this video, we'll have it on that day if he allows it. If he does not, I'll be in there live tweeting, live Xing, however you say it now, and posting updates on eastidahonews.com. There's where we stand. One other quick update on Lori. She remains in the prison. Governor Little in Idaho signed an agreement with the governor of Arizona to have Lori extradited back, but she still remains in the Pocatello Correctional Center. And Erica Stapleton at NBC 12 News in Arizona reported on Thursday that she learned that the Department of Correction, or the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office, has said they don't plan to bring Lori back to Arizona until all the appeals are done here in Idaho. That could be some time, a year or two. So Arizona, it sounds like they're waiting till all the appeals are done on Lori's behalf, and then they'll bring her back to Arizona. So the Idaho case sounds like we'll wrap up first before she even goes to Arizona. I haven't been able to independently confirm that, but Erica reported that yet on Thursday. So Sounds like Lori could be here for quite a while. I just checked this morning. She's still in her unit at the Pocatello Correctional Center. So there's where she stands. There's where Chad stands. And we'll continue to follow it. Thanks for watching. Despite the shakiness, I apologize.